Hello. Yeah. Hi, everyone. The toughest time to attend a conference talk just after lunch. So I think all of us are blessed to kind of look at a very boring presentation while our body is refusing to, right? So I will try to keep it as interesting as possible. I will try to stick to my points, and hopefully at the end of the presentation, there will be some takeaway which would not lead you to sleep. So I'm Prabal, I'm from Avail, and today I'm going to claim that if you have ever built a blockchain application, you are losing your users by the second. Every application that you have ever built on blockchain rails have been artificially limited in the amount of scale and in the amount of attributable market that you can reach out to. And we are going to introduce a concept of liquid apps, where we think that on-chain economy should be fully connected with one another, and users don't have to worry about which chain this app is on and so on. I will try to go through that, but firstly, I'm Prabal. I'm one of the co-founders of Avail. At Avail, we are trying to bring the next level of scale and interop to blockchain ecosystem by building the essential tools to make it happen. Before I make those big claims, I think I would like to start with a simple story. A story which probably all of us could be relating to, and hopefully you guys would go through the story with me. Let's assume that you have an application, any DeFi application. Just I have made up this name, Nextland, right? Like, you go to this application, you want to try that out. The first thing you realize is that you don't have sufficient funds on that chain. Now, that might be any app on any chain, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have funds on that exact specific token that they would want you to deposit. And so the first primary blocker becomes that I don't have enough funds on that chain, and that is okay. We are kind of used to that by now. What do? We don't worry. We go to a bridge, a separate application where I go, I pick up a token, I pick up the source, I pick up the destination, I pick up the amount, and then I approve. I wait for the bridge to take place. And then finally, when I have that asset on the destination chain, I realize that I don't have enough gas. I don't have enough gas to pay for the transaction fees on that chain. I have enough funds. So I'm not poor enough to not have to pay a few cents of transaction fees. It happens to be that I am not in the right token and the chain that I want to be in. And so you go onto the wrong asset, you go back, you do some other things, you go to gas.zip or any other website, you finally get your gas, and then you come back and you realize that, oh, you thought it is, let's say, USDC or USDT, but it happens to be some variant of that. Let's say it's USDTO, because that chain allows special wrappers of stable coins on that chain. Now you have to go through the cycle again. You have to go to a DEX, swap the token, and come back to that application. And this is what applications developer are also facing, not only the users. Think of the application developer who has put their mind and soul into building this app. This is the user experience that they are having to give by no role of their own. And I don't need to convince you, right, that this is messed up. User retention is a metric which every blockchain application is facing to be getting lower and lower every day, because we are kind of violating the first rule of SEO and analytics of websites. That is, if someone lands on your website, don't let them leave. But if you think about it, the first thing that we ask them is to leave this application, go to some other application, get the stuff done, and then come back to this application. So this is the flow today, and this has to fundamentally change. This cannot go on. We are living in a times where there are hundreds of chains that are out there, thousands of protocols across it. And if this is the state of affairs in this ecosystem, then this is going to be extremely fragmented. And so for an application developer, when they start their journey, the first question that they need to ask themselves is that which chain to build on. Now, suppose I'm building a DeFi application. I want the biggest TVL to be able to attract to my app, right? And I wouldn't want to go to some other chain which doesn't have enough liquidity just because they have better developer tooling or because they have incentives. But those are also real problems. Like if I am a very small indie dev and I go on to some of the biggest chains, maybe they will not support me. So now I'm having to make a critical choice, a choice between developer support, tooling, and ecosystem benefits versus the ability to attract volumes, to ability to attract liquidity, and so on. And this is what is bothering us. This is what is, creating a problem across the ecosystem. Let's assume that the developer chooses Arbitrum, and it could have been any other chain, but let's choose Arbitrum. This is the total TVL of Arbitrum as of a few days back, I guess. And then this is the rest of the Web3. And this is the choice that they have to make, 100x difference almost of what could have been your TAM versus what is your TAM. If you care about user retention, then this is the problem, the dilemma that you are facing every day while building an application. And so if you attended many of the talks, there are, very, very big DeFi applications giving talks all across this venue today and through the rest of the event, you will see that they're all having to struggle through this conundrum. Like whether I deploy to more chains. I was attending the last talk by Alex of Aerodrome, and they have been deploying to multiple of these chains. They have been trying to deploy to 12 plus chains. And that is an effort that not every developer can take. Developing concurrently on multiple smart contracts across different chains and synchronizing them together in order to not create an arbitrary leak of assets of value or an audit scope is not something every developer can partake. And the other option is, do I integrate bridging products? Do I just have a widget? Then there are like many, bridging products that are out there. You integrate one of those widgets, you allow users to use their applications within your app, and then you get the funds in so that in an attempt to not let the user leave. And this is what we want to solve. We want to allow users and allow developers to create liquid apps. Apps which we call liquid are the ones which do not ask their users which chain they are on. They do not ask their users whether they have the funds in the correct denomination. They don't ask their users whether they have this, crazy wrapped stable coin that is, that you need on your application. They just ask the users, do you have enough funds? Right now, we are talking about Avail Nexus, where we don't not only allow, users to deposit on-chain assets. We are very soon going to expand that and talk about, traditional rails and how users can be coming from traditional rails to on-chain rails as well. Because that's what we want. We want a connected on-chain economy. This ecosystem that we are building, the entire community conference that we are hosting, will be very limited if we cannot build the next set of financial tools on blockchain rails. And so what is Avail Nexus? It's very simple. On its outset, it does few things, and it tries to do these few things very well. It supports many chains. We have 15 plus chains today, but every week it's expanding. We have N-to-1 liquidity provision. So irrespective, this is not a one-to-one mapping. So you don't need to think about whether I transfer from Base to Arbitrum or from BSC to Arbitrum and so on. That is not the point. The point is, can you, take aggregate assets across all the chains and bring them here together? That's what we want to build. And then where does this sit? This sits within an SDK inside your application. You don't need a separate bridging portal. You don't need a separate UX. This can be completely included even inside the balance that you show of the user. We want to show a unified balance, a balance across all assets, across all chains inside the ecosystem. I think we have talked enough, and one of the things that we do a lot on these conferences is to talk about promises that we will deliver in due course of time. And I want to skip that and show what is possible today. And we have already launched something that we call as Avail Deposits. I would just like you to go through the flow of how a deposit looks like. So let's say I create a deposit widget on any contract. We have taken Avail, and I want to, deposit multiple different assets. It just goes through the flow. It takes assets from multiple different chains and multiple different denominations. It takes the intent, it collects from different sources, and then it deposits directly into the contract call on that application. So this entire thing we collect on at least two different sources across two different assets is what we show here. And we do a deposit transaction, and the total fees is, what fees do we accrue across the transaction fees, the protocol fees, and the different solver fees that are involved into enabling this. And so all of this is baked in within the same deposit widget. You don't need to go out. You don't need to worry about which chain and which asset. This all gets converted directly and get deposited, as well as executing any arbitrary functions of the contract. I think I discussed a lot on what, and I don't think I will be doing justice if I don't talk about how. So I'm going to quickly gloss over how do we enable it, because I think it's important to understand what are the technical nuances that go into building a plugin like this, an SDK like this. So what we have is we have support for all these chains and more, and let's assume that we take these chains and the user has funds across 5 of them. I cannot show this. This is a vibe coded architecture diagram, so don't blame me if there are problems here and there. But there is this wallet, and in the wallet I have different amounts across different asset classes, as you can see. And I want to go and use an application. Let's say that this application is on Ethereum and needs Avail token. You can talk about any ERC20 that is out there. I chose Avail. And then the normal flow is like you go and try to deposit on this app, but you face the issues. The issues are that that app is on Ethereum and your assets are not on there. The assets that you want to send are the wrong token. There is not enough, transaction fees. There is, insufficient balance on this application. So this is the conundrum with the normal flow. And how do we do it with Avail Nexus is that we have deployed vault contracts on each one of these chains. On all the chains, there's a lock contract which allows people to deposit assets of their choice into the vault contract. But of course, we cannot be taking up arbitrary assets because the solver might not support arbitrary assets. Not only that, those arbitrary assets might not be supported in the destination chain. There are so many assets today which are only available on a few of these chains, and it is on the responsibility of the application developer or the user, worse for the user, but it's on them to go and swap it and transfer it and then go and deposit it. So what we do is we take those assets, we swap them. We swap them into generally a stablecoin or a native token which has deep enough liquidity on the destination chain. In this example, we take USDC. So we swap all the incoming assets on those corresponding sources into something like USDC. This locking is what is looked at by the solver. The solver comes in and gives those funds through the destination deposit vault contract. And from that, of course, I cannot deposit USDC. That was one of the main problems on the destination app. We go ahead and swap it. We swap it, and then we go ahead and deposit it to the application. And this is how, roughly speaking, we enable. Of course, there's a settlement phase. The solver needs their money back. Once the vault has confirmed that the correct denomination and the correct amount was deposited on the application, that is verified by the Avail Nexus vault, and then the funds are transferred to the solver, which they are due of. And this is, roughly speaking, I have, of course, not talked about many different deltas of how this is enabled, things like ephemeral wallet supports, 77024337, and the host thereof. There are many of them already baked inside the protocol, but all of this goes inside the backend. The application developer don't need to worry, and all of this happens in a matter of few seconds. So this is roughly the architecture. I have been said that I'm already out of my time, and we are not only talking about this. There are already integrated apps already using us. There are ones which are many more are coming inside the pipeline. If you are a developer, let's talk about how we can elevate the UX, because UX is one of the biggest barriers of on-chain adoption, we believe. And if you are a user, we can also have some tools and portals that we can point you to where you can get seamless UX when entering newer ecosystems and newer chains. And if you're a developer, there's a Nexus SDK. This is a headless SDK, so all of your existing thematics and such can be quickly integrated. It will not impact your branding or anything else. You have UI elements if you want us to handhold you. There are UI elements that are out there which are React based, and I am guessing many of us are using React based infrastructure. So go ahead and just plug and play the code, and you will have a deposit widget working. The API is coming soon. We are supporting backend apps to also be able to use Nexus. And I'm not foolish enough to believe that we are still writing code by hands, and we don't assume people to do it also. So of course there are SDK skills and elements skills pack that we have. Just add those skills, ask the coding agent to do it on your behalf, and without much problem or guidance, you will be able to do it on yourself. If you face issues, definitely reach out to us. And yeah, let's talk more. If you are building a DeFi application, remember you are being artificially restricted towards expanding to multiple ecosystems. It should not be a roadmap item. It can be integrated today across multiple different ecosystems and asset classes. Thank you. I guess we have 2 minutes to take questions.
So does the system asynchronous when you have to unlock the funds to the solver, or is it synchronous and you have to wait the end of the transaction on the app?
So the waiting is for the solver, and so the solver waits. The solver has to wait tens of minutes because there are problems that you take when you do the fast path. The fast path is for the users, so the users are giving the money as soon as possible. But for the solver, we have to work for the reorg limits. We have to work through the transaction confirmations. We have to work through confirmations from across different chains and so on. And that takes a bit of time. I would say roughly 5 to 10 minutes is what it takes for the solver to receive back the funds. For the users, it's a matter of few seconds, as you saw.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.